Let's bring in Democratic Congressman Sara who has been fighting to create universal child care. Before we get into the child care cliff, Congressman, first, your thoughts on the CR that just passed the House is now being taken up for consideration in the Senate.
I'm really glad that we in the House were able to pass a continuing resolution to avert a government shutdown. But to be honest, it should have never gotten this close. And I think Kevin McCarthy owes an apology to the service members, like those in my district, to federal workers, to people who rely on federal programs, for the anxiety and uncertainty he caused, even getting us this close to a shutdown.
So, as I said, even if they are able to pass that CR, we are still facing a child care cliff. Tell me what you see as the stakes here, both for child care providers and for the families across this country who rely on that child care so that they themselves are able to go to work.
That's right. I am incredibly disappointed that we weren't able to get the extension of the child care stabilization grants into this CR. It will have huge impacts for families across the country. We know in California alone, something like 80,000 kids might lose access to child care. And that has a huge impact on not just these families and these child care providers, but our entire economy. This is something that, to me, makes no sense that it is such a hard fight. Investing in quality early childhood programs are a win-win. We actually save $6 for every $1 we invest in these kinds of programs. And for my colleagues who like to talk about fiscal responsibility, it seems to me pretty crazy that they won't make these investments that are some of the most fiscally responsible investments we can make.
So to that point, when you talk about extending child care funding, you had Republican colleagues who refused to sign in. What was the hang-up about the Child Care Stabilization Act?
You know, to be honest, I think a lot of it was just lost in the chaos of the Republican Party right now. We didn't hear a single Republican even talk about it or even be willing to come to the table to address it. It's like they were so focused on their infighting and their chaos and their extreme ideology that they didn't even care about this issue that impacts so many American families.
You know, I think a lot of people feel as though we are caught in this endless cycle, this game of chicken, where we come very close to a government shutdown, and in the 11th hour, a deal is reached. How do you avoid this endless cycle? How do you get out from under this so that you can actually do the work of legislating, of governing, and delivering on things like childcare, which you and I have talked about before? I mean, it is something that needs a complete system revamp and reform. There can't be capacity for that if you're constantly racing down the clock just to serve the basic functions of government.
Well, that's right. And the fact of the matter is, every government shutdown has happened because of Republicans. In fact, in 2018, Republicans controlled the House, the Senate, and the White House, and they still had a government shutdown. So what we need to do is to not have leaders who will empower these extreme right-wing Republican ideologues who are willing to throw the American economy and the American government hostage just to shove their extreme ideology down the throats of the American people. President Biden and Kevin McCarthy made a deal in the spring to avert a debt ceiling breach and to fund the government. Senate Democrats, Senate Republicans, the White House, and House Democrats all continue to abide by that agreement, and only Kevin McCarthy has reneged. So it never had to get this close. We didn't have to have this uncertainty in our system. There has always been a bipartisan agreement that Kevin McCarthy was just unwilling to put up for a vote.
Congresswoman Sara, as always, thank you so much for spending some time with us.